Welcome to another episode of the Military World. In this video, we will talk about the intention of the European Union and Ukraine to take Putin to the dock in a trial for war crimes. But is something like this really possible? Recently, at the end of November, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that Russia needs and must pay for its invasion of Ukraine. Not only in financial terms, with the cost of the destruction caused by Russia estimated at €600 billion, but also and mainly in justice, through the creation of a special international criminal court. But what would this special court be? And above all, can it really be done? According to the Charter of the United Nations, an unprovoked war of aggression, which is what Russia is waging in Ukraine, is a clear violation of international, and therefore, is liable to judgment in the International Criminal Court. And indeed, that court has already launched an investigation into alleged war crimes during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The problem is that Russia, like other countries like the United States, is not a signatory to this court, which means that in practice, the International Criminal Court cannot prosecute Russia for war crimes, whether in Ukraine or any other country. However, the UN Security Council has the power to allow the International Criminal Court to try even those countries that are not signatories or have not ratified the court's treaty. The problem is that Russia has veto power in the UN Security Council, which means that the Russians would certainly veto any proposal in this regard. The solution to this impasse would involve the creation of the Special Criminal Court, suggested by the President of the European Commission, von der Leyen. This court would not be directly linked to the UN, and therefore, could in theory, judge and eventually condemn Russia and its main leaders for war crimes. The problem in this case is that a possible decision by this court would not have unanimous international acceptance. That is, in practice, Putin, his generals and diplomats would be considered guilty of war crimes only by the signatory countries of that Special International Criminal Court, a group that in principle would be formed by the 27 members of the European Union, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and, eventually, other countries that are currently dedicated to the defense of Ukraine, such as Australia and Japan. A full trial at the International Criminal Court, such as that given in the case of Serbian leader Slobodan Milosevic, would not be possible in the case of Russia. And in case of conviction in that special court, Putin, his generals and diplomats, would only be found guilty by the countries that are part of the special court. In this case, if convicted, Putin could carry out his state trips only to countries that are not signatories to that special court. If, for example, in a scenario where Putin is found guilty of war crimes in Ukraine by this court, and if the United States is one of the signatory countries, Putin and other top members of his government, such as Sergei Lavrov, could enter the United States to, for example, attend international events at the UN. But they could normally enter other non-signatory countries, such as, for example, China, a country that almost certainly would not accept to participate in that special court. Therefore, Russia and ultimately Putin himself can be tried by a special international criminal court, yes. But this judgment would only serve to formalize Russia as a pariah and isolated nation in some spheres, such as Europe, the United and some areas of Asia and Oceania, but in the rest of the world, in non-signatory countries, everything would remain the same. The only scenario in which Putin could in fact be tried for war crimes would be in the remote hypothesis of being overthrown and arrested by the new Russian government. In that case, Putin could be handed over to the International Criminal Court, the same way Serbia did to Slobodan Milosevic, but given the way Putin has managed to cement himself in power in Moscow, this scenario is really very unlikely to come to pass.